Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Raising Excellence, one of the most valuable hours of your day today. I am stepping in for Michael today. My name is Chris McMillan, and I'm the host of truthconduit.com, the podcast. So today I'm going to try to do a bit of emceeing for the group. I'm just going to introduce everyone. This week we're taking a break from Tim Flynn's course to honor Valentine's Day. Now we'll be talking about loving expressions, discussing solutions to communication challenges in relationships. So today's Monday, so towards the end of the hour, we'll be checking on our journaling successes as well of the past week. Well, let's meet our fantastic, fabulous, amazing, wonderful, awesome hosts. So we've got Agnieszka, who's in Canada from Poland, our psychosomatic illuminator. And then we've got Willow, our trauma consultant, and she's in Virginia. Deirdre is in Australia, and she is our development strategist. And Dennis, who's in Germany, he is our freedom facilitator. So if you're viewing this live and you have any questions, please input. Feel free to step in, type your questions. We would love to hear from you. So presenting the exercise of the week and why communication is paramount in loving relationships. Who wants to get started?
Well, we thought that talking about Valentine's Day was important, and what's the most challenging thing for Valentine's is that communication. I mean, other than expectations, but we talk a lot about expectations. So this week we're going to tackle communication in relationships, in couples specifically, not necessarily heterosexual, any couples, any kind of romantic people who are involved together who are having a communication barrier.
So not platonic relationships.
No, because they have a little different sort of dynamic. Deirdre can talk about the dynamics. She's the expert. Now she's drinking tea.
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm just like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, your name, Deirdre. Okay. All right, Deirdre, tell us.
So why are we talking about relationships and not like friendships?
I was going to add that I would add that it could be just all types of relationships, but that's okay because they're different. Kind of at a intimate relationship, you're allowing somebody to see you at a very vulnerable level. I like to use like a glass ball when I'm thinking of relationships. So I have a glass ball and it has, let's say, scarves around it. And every time I feel comfortable, I'll lift off the scarf. And, one day you may or may not see that little glass ball. I don't know. I haven't shown it to a lot of people. I haven't shown it to myself that much, but it's there. And so intimate relationships have that, you're closer to that glass ball.
Yeah, and I think that in intimate relationships or in partnerships like that, like people who live together who are close, together in a relationship, there's a lot more room for resentment, failed expectations, and anger of that sort. Like I would never have as high expectations of my friends as I would have of my boyfriend, for example, or husband.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
And the triggers get I notice that I get triggered a lot easier on the level of the relationship.
Well, I think it goes back to your partner is the base of your support system. Once you become an adult, you move out of your parents' house, you realize that you're not going to probably move in with your girlfriends and live with them forever.
Willow, you got something going on with your microphone there, love. It's kind of echoey. Can you check your microphone settings?
I was going, it's fine.
It's a little.
The power has been going in and out. So.
Oh, okay.
Is there a storm right now going on, Willow?
Not that I know of. It's been rainy all day, but other than that, it's been fine.
Okay.
Well, just a bit of heads up here. It's raining here very heavily. So if I do have any internet issues, that's probably the reason, but it seems to be working perfectly now. Sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, is my mic sounding better?
Yes.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
now it's perfect.
So what I was saying is support systems. It's kind of like the base of your support system once you become an adult. And it's really important for you to diversify. A lot of people depend solely on their partner for every need. They don't necessarily have a good friend support group and maybe different support groups and different outlets. They rely only on their partner, and that can kind of strain the relationship and make things even more intense. And you kind of expect more from them, and you also have less patience. So yeah.
Yeah, where do expectations end and responsibilities begin? Like, what would you guys classify in a relationship as an expectation versus like collaboration?
That's really interesting. I thought an idea kind of came into my head. Like, it's like conversations. It's like when you meet a brand new person straight off the bat, you're introducing to each other, but every other interaction from then on isn't that same introduction. It is just a continuation of the last conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
So are you all
at what
saying I have
point-
to talk to my wife?
well, we get in a lot of trouble having expectations of others and not seeing them for who they are, but looking at them for who you'd want them to be. Oh my goodness, the tag is wrong.
Mm.
Unless there are barriers there that two people all they want is to be able to have a conversation, but they can't. We're talking about a Romeo Juliet kind of situation. And then it's that eternal struggle to just get together freely and have that conversation rather than continue the previous conversation. That could be a factor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it then that we are more often than not actually seeking ourselves in the image of the other, of the partner, and seeking expectations that we might not even have expressed, or that the other one might not even be conscious about? We seek them, we hope them to be met, and we validate our partner to standards that they might not even know about, or might not even want or be able to live up to.
Yeah, it's almost like we take that partner and we try to fit him into a mold, our own mold. Like, you have to have the same opinions as me. You have to have the same priorities as me. If I think anniversaries are important, that means you have to think anniversaries are important. And there's really a room for difference there. Like, if my partner thinks anniversaries are important and I don't, we should have a conversation about it, right? Or holidays, like Valentine's, for example. I personally don't really care about Valentine's here or there.
Oh, thank you. I thought I was alone here. I've never celebrated it. I never bought a box of chocolate. I thought it was like a florist day to make some money.
To double the prices, absolutely. If you buy flowers a week before or a week after, you get completely different prices. And the best flowers are the ones you pick yourself in the woods and bring it home to your loved one. Those are the best flowers.
I thought the best ones were the ones that you never pick, but you dig them out and you bring them like in a pot and you put them in your window in your garden.
You could do that too.
And you water them.
You could do that too. But the bushes in the woods have lots of nice flowers on them. They don't mind sparing a couple branches for your house.
Yeah.
It's not like
they're showering us with natural abundance.
That's right.
So we might take 2 or 3.
That's right.
See, my husband and I have our own brand of romance. We buy each other guns for anniversary presents, and not usually on anniversary. It's usually like 3 months before an anniversary, and we're like, happy anniversary, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. We don't even celebrate Hanukkah. Here you go. Here's a gift.
Well, doesn't that get a little monotonous, though, if you're always getting each other the same type of gift?
There's so many guns.
There's many types of guns.
You need to have all
Yeah,
of them?
see?
And there's ammo to buy. There's things for the guns. Like, there's plenty. Get lots of variety.
Yeah, it's like collecting, adding to your stash, basically, and there are no limits. The bigger you want your stash, the better off you are.
I was thinking my craft
And
supplies.
when I say stash, I mean, your 30-day, your food supply. Every household should have at least 30 days of food stashed somewhere. Food and supplies. That's what I mean by stash, but same thing. So, yeah.
That leads me back to like, I think it's a balance. Like you need to have opposite interests. For example, my husband and I don't listen to the same types of music. I listen to a couple of the songs he listens to, and I don't think he really likes my music all that much. It's not terrible for him to listen to, but he prefers his. I prefer mine, but we both are into guns. So there's a balance. Like you need to have common interests and things that you know how to communicate on.
Hey,
because
wait. That's the topic for Thursday.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just teasing. Find a common thread is the topic for Thursday. But that's a good introduction for it.
I was just meaning finding a balance is when things get difficult, it's really nice to have something comforting to go back to. So if you're used to playing Super Smash Bros. At the end of the week, and you both know how to play and enjoy each other's time, it's not a waste of time. It's something you're doing together. Also doing things like away from each other.
Yeah, that's important too. But what about that communication? We were supposed to talk about communication today. I'm not sure about Chris keeping us on track. He seems to be taking us off track. But hey.
We'll find our way back.
We'll find our way back.
I don't know. What about,
hey, you're not going to get any apologies from me.
Absolutely. Okay, what about what?
Communication, like between genders. I know that I communicate differently to you ladies than I do to the gentlemen. And it just, I don't know, it happens that way.
So when it comes between the genders, it becomes a whole new ball of wax?
It doesn't have to be. I just noticed that, on our podcast last week, it was just us three and Mike. We've had a few times. And we generally kind of dance around the conversation. And then Mike's like, okay, come on, this is kind of getting off topic. And then somehow we'll dance our way back to the topic. But that's just how I talk. That's just how I talk to women. Like, it's just that whole circling around the conversation and kind of like, dipping our toe in it every now and again. I don't know. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah. So when women speak, they don't really look for a resolution or how-tos or to-dos or whatever. They're just looking for spinning thoughts, threads of thought.
I always, when I picture this in my head, I picture just like stepping back and observing a much broader picture, where you see all the things spinning and all the conversations and what this means to all the different people. And you observe all of that before you even decide what this is. It's a strange, and I've noticed that it usually only happens when there's like maybe one male and it's predominantly female. We get really, really comfortable with each other, and then we just start on our own little circle of conversation.
And that's why we need a moderator and men in our midst,
yes,
like Dennis.
And the balance, because I noticed that when we tried to do it ourselves, we were missing that. Okay, all right, we've done that. We really need to do this right now.
But we have too much fun talking to each other or just talking.
Something you guys said earlier that really, I think Willow said it, about the support system. That's very interesting. How the stronger the support system is for each person in the relationship, that's kind of a outlet of responsibility. Whereas the less support systems out there, and I'm thinking specifically of other friends, usually couples have the same set of friends that they hang out with. But sometimes, I don't know, are there any advantages and disadvantages to say the guy has his friends he hangs out with, but not necessarily, he doesn't hang out, the wife doesn't hang out with, or the wife has her friends and the guy doesn't necessarily hang out with them? Is that there? What are some of the good and bad aspects of that situation, as opposed to if there's a couple who all of their friends, they're all the same, like other couples, for example, they only hang out with other couples, so it's everybody together always. The guy doesn't really have any friends that he hangs out with that the wife doesn't know, or vice versa.
Well, I don't know about.
Do you know what I mean?
Know. I don't know about doesn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it would.
I mean, not know, but not hang out with. Yeah, not hang out with.
Not habitually hang out with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that better when my partner has a group of friends, or at least a couple of friends that he goes out and hangs out with away from me. And we might know each other and see each other every now and then, but in reality, those are like mainly his friends, because that gives him an outlet. One of my partners always wanted me to come to the parties that his friends had, and it was just not my scene, and it was just I ended up having to drink wine to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing.
It wasn't like I like intellectual pursuits, and I like poetry, and I like philosophy, and there was none of that. These were whole parties, like for hours and hours, and there was no intellectual pursuits, philosophy, or, not even poetry.
Look, I've got a theory about that. These kind of social gatherings where there's not any real substance to the conversation, there's always potential for that. I think people are always looking for, okay, some people would never have, you can only go so far with in depth, but many people maybe are looking for a pathway to go deeper, but they're afraid because there may be, they might put their hand in the fire ant pit, if you know what I mean. For example, say political views. Someone who's very, very left wing goes to a social gathering, is hoping to meet someone like minded, but then they discover they're with someone who's all right wing, for example, and so they're going to keep the conversation at a very superficial level. Be nice. Let's talk about wine. Let's talk about curtains, because they're there and we're all people, and we do want to get along.
There's only so
that
much.
Could be another factor as well.
I was gonna say
you can only talk about curtains for so long.
The people,
I was getting to that as well. And then once you realize there's nothing, you're not going to go any further, then it's pretty much stuck to wine and curtains. And then what? Yeah.
Willow.
I was going to say that, I lost my train of thought.
I found it. So
can you tell it to come back, please?
I will. Just cut me off right when it's there. Look, starting from the beginning, for me, communication, the root meaning of the word and what it really stands for, it has to do with something that is more than one, right? Because there's more than one communicating. Comunare, commune is together. So somebody communicates with something else. So would you say that a base of communicating, of exchanging information with somebody else in a balanced way, is first to have a balance within yourself and have an internal communication that is balanced? Is that something you would agree to?
It's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
And so also, when you were talking about communication, I was thinking communion, like common union, like coming together in union, right?
So if you come together in union with the different aspects of yourself, you have your emotional being, your physical being,
shadow.
your shadow, your intellectual being. So those aspects of yourself that make up yourself. So you come to one with those, and you're balanced and you find harmony. So you have harmony within, and that, for me, it is logically, once you have found harmony, harmonious communication with yourself, with those aspects of yourself, then only can you communicate that harmony, that balance, and that peace with somebody else, or somebody who you perceive as else, even if that one is your closest relationship and your partner, your wife or your spouse. then I think that is the basis for that. So if we're seeking for that kind of peaceful, harmonious communication with our spouse, then we would have to look within first and find what we're looking for in the other one in ourselves first. So and not think that we have to look for something in the other that we not have found within ourselves yet. And then I feel that this then is the basis for becoming one and coming together as one with another person, or even then on a level of society with other people around us, and to have powerful and positive communications with those around us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
but everything you just talked about, Dennis.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Deirdre.
Chris. Deirdre.
No, I was saying go Willow.
Oh, go Willow.
She looked like she was trying to talk.
She's muted.
I was thinking about it, but it's okay.
Did it come back?
Yeah, it did, because we were talking about people at parties, and I was gonna say it's not unlikely that you're gonna meet someone there. The only problem is people who are seeking intellectual conversation, they're seeking something more than trauma bonding. They don't last very long there. It doesn't give them what they want. They have to get really drunk to stay. And once they stop doing those things, they start to realize how little they actually enjoy the event. And they really just enjoyed the fact that there was really loud music and they didn't have to hear their own thoughts. And there's lots of alcohol or other mind-altering substances. Even just being around the people and like the comfort of a crowd can calm you down sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes just someone willing to listen is all someone needs up to a certain point. And even a stranger. And in fact, I mean, I'm getting off topic here, but it's sometimes people are more willing to spill their guts to a stranger rather than someone that they know, because you can say things to a stranger.
I was gonna say, you actually tied this right back into communication. One of the steps in one of my courses that I learned from someone else, I don't remember who right now, but it talks about not talking about all your shit. Don't unleash it on the cashier or, the waitress. Like, don't tell your story to every single person or go in depth. Speak to your friends, specific friends with intention about it, and it will change the way you the way you communicate with yourself and the way you communicate with other people about it.
Yeah, because it's that banging the same drum with the backpack that we talked about the other week, where you put all your negative experiences and then you rub against them every now and then, right? But this
the
is
ability
about
to listen.
Sorry.
Yeah, the ability to listen is half of communication, right? So you have to be able to convey what you would like the other one to get from you, but you also have to you have to listen to the message, to how the other is receiving and what he or she has to say.
I was going to say the other half would be honesty, because if you're not being honest with yourself, or one partner is not being honest, even if you are not being honest to yourself, it really messes the whole relationship up in the communication. You can't have effective communication if you're not saying what you actually feel.
Okay, so you guys have a lot of experience with relationships, right? So can I ask each and every one of you the same question? Like, what is the thing that works best for you to improve communication in relationships? Let's start with Deirdre. Okay, let's start with Willow.
What was the question?
What works for you in communication in relationships? You can think about it.
Okay.
For me, I think it's probably 2, maybe 3 main points. The first one is sticking it out. I'm coming up on, I believe, I hate admitting this, especially on live TV. I believe it's my 10-year anniversary, but it might be my 9. I'm not sure at this point. I'm that wife. But I've been with my husband for a long time. and now I've lost
Look,
train of
Willow,
thought
there's
because
a trick to that. Just remember the date that you got married or got together. Just remember that date and that year, and and just say, "Oh yeah, we've been together since then," and then let everyone else do the math.
that is a good idea. Trick everybody else into doing the work for me. You're a
Yeah.
genius, Chris.
I met Marie January 5th, 2002. So there, you do the math.
Very nice. So the first year we were married, we were in South Korea. So there was a ocean 3,000 miles in between me and going home. It was sink or swim. You just got to stick it out. Even if you're mad and you want to leave, you can't. I mean, I'm not saying for abusive situations that you should stick it out and stay, but we all say harsh things. We all say things in the heat of the moment that, if you see progress, you should stick it out, and you should allow the other person to make mistakes, because it also allows you to understand that you can make mistakes. And a part of sticking it out is not letting just a conversation end without at least coming to an understanding. If you don't reach an agreement, that's fine. You don't have to agree on everything. Aim to agree, but at least reach an understanding of, okay, where we're at right now, this is how I feel about the situation. These are all the things I'm upset or I'm happy with. What about you? And just be like, okay, that's just how you feel. That has been probably the number one thing. And also the second one is research. I know that sounds strange, but if you have any sort of diagnosis, research the symptoms, research anything about it, research what it might mean in a mythological or symbolical meaning. Like, find every little what it means in the medical terms. What does it mean in the DSM-5? Read other people's experiences and try to figure out what you're experiencing so that you can better communicate to other people what's going on. That helped tremendously for me. Yeah, those are my two.
Good advice.
Probably my two biggest.
I can really speak to that. Stick it out, because as long as there is improvement and you're still working together, because I was in a similar situation where I was with Eric in Quebec, and it was winter and I couldn't drive home because the northern Canada froze and couldn't drive. Well, I guess I could, but I didn't want to risk my life. So I ended up sticking it out and learning a lot and growing together and really deepening our relationship. So what about you, Chris?
So what can we draw from this then?
No, wait, answer my question first. What's the best advice you have about communication in relationships? You have a lot of experiences, Marie. You guys lived all over the world. You moved your children between countries a couple times. You gotta got some good conflict experience.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've lived in Spain, Ireland, England, and USA now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, what is
unfortunately, a lot of our major life-changing decisions, we just kind of winged it without really weighing it up. We just said, let's do it.
But what about
and I'm not sure if that's the best advice.
We're talking about communication. So what is it that you guys do that's good for communication?
We just weigh out we do weigh it out, actually. We just figure out what we like, what the advantages are of one's decision, and what will change. So luckily we see eye to eye the things that we got fed up with equally around the same time. Sometimes I wonder who influenced who. For example, when we left Spain, we were sick of teaching English. Now, I'm not sure which one of us started complaining about doing that first, and I don't know the answer to this. Maybe someone influenced the other more than the other one. But we both decided we're fed up with this. Let's go to the UK, see what we can do. And after 3 years in the UK, we realized what a great deal we had in Spain, and moving back and going back into teaching was fantastic. But that is another point. When a certain idea gets embedded with a couple as a general, where does the idea start? Does it start with one of them and then the other one kind of gets influenced by it and says, oh yeah. And what if there is conflict there? I don't know. In our case, we were we went with the flow. We both saw agreement on it and we went with it. But I don't know.
I was going to say that's a good point because I see a lot of couples where one partner will have this idea, like let's say, because it's on my mind now, they want to just up and move to Spain. And the wife is like, no, absolutely not. I don't want to move to Spain for whatever reason. I don't know why you would never want to move to Spain. Sounds wonderful to me, but I know nothing about Spain. It's like one of them doesn't take the other's desire seriously because it's not a serious desire for them. And it kind of like it's similar to me when parents will do this to children where they will be like, I want to be an astronaut, and the parents like, you're probably never ever going to be an astronaut because of this and this and this. And you know what? You should probably be like a bartender because you're gonna,
make lots
like
of
it's
tips.
kind of like crushing. Yeah, it's like crushing their dreams. Like, okay, maybe you want to be an astronaut. Maybe they want to do that because they think the cure to the disease that their grandfather died from is up there, and they want to go get it. And maybe when they realize that it's not, they'll be like, oh, I don't want that anymore. Like, you don't really understand someone's desire fully until they can express it to you. And especially in intimate relationships, I've noticed a lot of times we will feel very comfortable to express our desires without fully flushing them out. And then when they're not understood correctly, it can kind of be like,
we get so
wait,
upset. How dare you
Yeah.
misunderstand me? I didn't
Yeah.
have it fully formed, but I still wanted you to understand me perfectly.
Yeah, we really, and I'll say this for women especially. This is not just it is a stereotype, but it is true. Women have this insane idea that men should be able to read our minds. And I thought I was immune from this, but I'm not, because I've noticed much more recently that there are certain cases where I'm like, I'm just upset because I thought something else was going to play out here. And I expected you to notice that I was having a hard time and like be aware of that. And instead you didn't. And I didn't ask for help. And now I'm in this situation and I'm hyperventilating and it's my fault. But when you point that out to me, I'm going to be really upset.
So what about I shouldn't have to ask for help? Dennis, what about that?
I can relate so much to that, what you just said, Willow. For me, and I can only ever talk for myself, really, but like to not make assumptions about the other one, by communicating. I think that's one of the basics that stood out, or that has been standing out for me. For you not to assume that how the other one is feeling, or even what the other one is thinking in that moment. I think that is a base, and then just to maybe keep a curiosity, like instead of condemning or I always knew you never wanted to go to Spain, and that's my dream, and you this and that. But okay, I'm really curious. What is your what's the problem with Spain? Like, I'd like to find out. Or where's how did you get that perspective? How did you come to that conclusion? And I think that is maybe like a more healthy approach, which is not so confrontational, because in the end, if your interest is to do something together and to be together, and in a relationship you already are together supposedly, then I think one of the abilities which that might be helpful to develop is to put yourself in the other one's shoes as much as you can, which we never really can because we cannot jump in somebody else's head, but to show that you want to do that and that you're open to do that. I think that is a good base of finding common ground from which you can then look at the same direction, or maybe take a different perspective at things.
I was gonna ask the ladies here, because this is something, when you said putting yourself in other people's shoes and you can't fully, that is a concept that drives me bonkers. I used to ask my husband all sorts of questions, like, what's your favorite color? What kind of animals have you had? And one day he was like, will you please stop asking me questions? You're never going to know everything about me. And when you do know everything about me, we're going to be boring. Like, just, it's fine. You don't have to know everything. But like, there was points where he was deployed and I was like, I have never been to these places. He's been to a place when we have been together, but I have not been there, and I don't know what he experienced. And that's a really strange concept. I was curious, is that like just a me thing, or is that maybe a girl thing, or is that a universal thing?
But was that a bad thing for you or not? I'm not, was it a negative thing or you just kind of, yeah, whatever?
It kind of upset me because it was kind of like me thinking about my memories from before I met Kurt, and I can express those to him and I can share them with him. And because I could never fully share that memory with him because I wasn't there, it like threw me off balance. Like it kind of felt like it separated us a little, and it was all a mental thing. It was totally all mental, and I got over it. But for a while, it really kind of, messed with my head.
But why, like, I think it's a personality thing. Why do you want to get to know another person that much? Because I got so much going on in my head, and I got so much, like, Eric and I have so much in common, but I don't really care to know the areas of his brain that he doesn't share with me, because I kind of presume that I wouldn't be interested. Like, that's where, like, books like Gulag Archipelago live, or really horrible horror movies, things that I don't really want to know, but he's into. So, like, okay,
I think maybe it was a deep realization that while we were together, he was having experiences that I was not. So it was like,
where's that expectation coming from?
I mean, this was our first, no, our like third or fourth year of marriage. So
yeah, but you're talking it from the point of view of enlisted life.
Yeah, that is true too.
Go like 8 months of living together in a relationship, but not living together, not even contacting each other for months at a time. That is a different type of relationship.
I feel that I just realized I kind of feel that feeling when I make plans with like girlfriends. It's kind of strange to like go out by myself, because I have been married in a relationship for so long that I just spend most of my nights like, with my husband. But and then I'll go to like friends' houses. But if I go out like with a friend, it feels a little strange to me.
What about cultural differences? Like in my case with Dennis and Agnieszka, your partner is someone from a different country. Now, my experience is the slight subtle differences there have been amusing, never really anything divisive. But sometimes that could be a factor as well, and these things are very hard to overcome if it's something seriously divisive.
Well, it's funny because one of our listeners just posted something in the comments, and this is Dr. Janet. She said, sensitivity also comes into play with communications. After 30 years together, we are more direct in our language. It's helpful for clarity, but it comes at the risk of hurt feelings. It's never boring. So that's what I would say about, being with a French person. It's helpful for clarity, but comes at the risk of hurt feelings. Eric can be very direct, but also somewhat insensitive sometimes. So that can, but that's
is that a
thing.
Montreal characteristic?
So. I think so. The people there are very direct and very unapologetic. So, but I've come with a workaround. I basically, what I do now is I say, oh, well, you just said made me kind of feel like this. And then he usually goes, oh, no, I didn't mean to make you feel like hurt or whatever. I meant to make you feel informed, like there's that conversation. So.
And also cultural difference may not, people may be from the same area, but then there could be socioeconomic factors as well. Your partner might come for, again, Romeo and Juliet situation, oh, your family's not good enough. So it's more than just political, cultural barrier as well. I don't know. There's so many factors to take into consideration where communication could be challenged. And here's another one. I'm going to throw this one out there and then I'll leave it. Language barrier in that case. Like in the case of Dennis's first language is German. I mean, obviously, is in. Oh, sorry, you do, Agnieszka. But what if what if there's a language at the house, a certain language that the one of the partners doesn't speak necessarily the language of the culture very well. These are factors to consider as well.
I would say that it affects when in-laws come. So if it's not my, if my language isn't, my first language is not English, it's actually my second language. And when my family comes to visit, they'll be speaking my first language, but my partner speaks English, then that's really awful for my partner. I'm not saying that, I just know that because I am from, I have family, parents whose English is not their first language, so I've seen it.
That reminds me back on, identifying the different layers of communication itself, which is, there's communication by words, there's communication through gestures, there's communication even through your, the physical shape of your being, because that communicates also the experiences you would have had in your life. There's communication that goes even, just by a look, that goes beyond looks at all, that, so there's so many different layers of communication that we can consciously, and by bringing awareness to it, that we can consciously focus. Go ahead, Deidre.
Yeah, communication to me really blows my mind, because even just because I look a certain way could be interpreted differently depending on how you interpret that look or your mood. And what I find really amazing about communication is that my perception has nothing to do, can't even sense what is actually really happening in reality. So me talking, okay, let's go with eyes. Okay, I visually see you, and then it comes in as a two-dimensional image, and then it gets switched around into your brain to where you're going to perceive it. So you've lost a lot of that information, and then you've got to put it all back and kind of communicate that back so that you can understand that. And then you do the reverse to me, and we kind of go, yeah, that's what we're talking about. That's to me, that's amazing. I'm like,
that's,
oh my gosh.
I'm going to expand on that. When you said you lose a lot of the information, I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think you're absorbing all the information, but only a fraction of it is going into verbal memory, where you can be like, oh, I know what that is. That's a light bulb. Or that's a moose, you're like, I know what that is. Yeah. It's got a name and I can say it.
That's
the rest
right.
of it
it's kind of dependent on where our focus is.
Yeah. The rest of it,
the eyes.
The rest of it's still absorbed. All the symbols, the symbology, the meanings that you, the connotations that you put on it, the actual definitions that everything that you know about any of the information is all stored in your body somewhere.
You're talking about face reading right now, where we all do it all the time, but I know the names for all those things.
Well, I'm also talking about children will report as when they're adults, children who have been abused, when they're adults, they'll report feeling super anxious or their symptoms worsening on days where people around them wear like a green tie. And they never realize that the people who abused them wore like green shoelaces or they had a green bracelet, and it was completely erased from their memory. But somewhere when they're picking that up, they're picking up something that they don't know how to make sense of, but it's still making their brain and their body react even though they don't understand it.
Yeah.
It's just occurred to me, Agnieszka, in your case, your native language is Polish and Eric's native language is French. So your common language is English. Have you ever had any challenges on that front? I mean, you both have an excellent level, but have there ever been miscommunication because of that?
I mean, we speak English very well. We sometimes make fun of each other's accents when it's like words that we don't use very often. But I think Dennis would have a more visceral experience of that because he was just learning English when he met Colleen. So she was still teaching him words when they first got together, right?
No, I learned English in school, so I knew English, but when I came to Jamaica, I didn't know
Okay.
patois necessarily.
Yeah. Okay. Patois English, right?
Yeah, but yeah, we could communicate in English, so that is so that wasn't really much of a trouble. But what what that brings to my mind really is that in terms of communication, even if let's say the words are not there, or the ability of speaking the same language is not there, then if there's a willingness of both parties to really understand and to get along, then it is amazing of how far you can reach even without words. Even with the people communicate with almost no resources whatsoever, and they're able to get along, to get their belly full, or to find a bathroom, or to do whatever is necessary in the moment. So it is, I think the basis of it is really like a willingness of coming into a union, of coming together, of communicating with the other one. And if that willingness is there on both sides, then there's not really anything much, I believe, that could stop that. Only if there's barriers being put up by yourself, consciously or subconsciously, or by the other one, then there might be difficulties. And if I may draw like a metaphor, or use the metaphor of capoeira, which is an Afro-Brazilian martial art that I'm teaching, then once you know how to play to the rhythm, so it is like it's a blend of fighting and dancing, with acrobatic movements, with attacks and jumps, and where two players basically play with each other, and it might sometimes look like a fight, and at the same time it looks like a dance, but it's always done through music. So once both of the players are in tune with the rhythm that is being played by the people who stand around and play the instruments, then the communication between those two players is in harmony with everyone. And then there's a communication that is greater, that goes beyond just the interaction of the two players, but then there's an interaction between the two players, but also in between the two players and the ones that do the music, and in between everybody else who forms part of the circle. So I think that's a very strong way of seeing what communication
and
can
Dennis,
do, how it goes beyond too.
What about no communication? Here's where the country song, we cue in the country song. You say it best when you say nothing at all. Yeah, you know that song?
Is there something like
Alison
no communication? But even without words, there's communication going on, even without a gesture. But you're putting a certain thought, you're having a certain mindset, or you might sit down beside somebody on the bus, and you just feel a toxic vibe, and it's like the person didn't even say anything or do anything, but you just feel weird. And with somebody else, it's like, oh, you feel great, you feel like you know the person for many years. So there is some kind of communication that you perceive. You cannot even make it out sometimes, but you perceive, or there's something. So
when Eric
when
and
is there ever no communication?
Right. When Eric and I had a lot of conflict in that relationship, I used to, after he would get upset and he'd leave the house, right? And so I would sit there and I would think really hard at him, all of the things I wanted him to understand. I would just try to force my mind to think it at him. I can't say it to you for you to understand. So at least maybe on this level, you'll get it on some other level.
Well, any conclusions that we can draw from all of this? Any final thoughts before we start to wrap up?
Oh, I didn't add mine. Like what I do with the question.
Sorry, Deirdre, go ahead.
I have one that I really do my best to do is if there is conflict and it's kind of just kind of getting difficult, I try and pretend that I have glass walls and that everybody can see me, or I have all my friends and family and loved ones all around me, just so it doesn't escalate to a level where it's just there's no connection there, there's nothing kind of happening. It's just because has anyone ever had an argument out in public where it's kind of just like, I'm not going to go as much as I want to, I'm just going to hold it in because everyone's looking at me. So I try and do that in my home too.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, holding it in, the glass walls.
No, not holding it in.
No, I was just imagining the glass walls, and I was like, I've kind of done that before too, where it's like I kind of hold myself to a higher standard.
put
Yeah.
yourself in a bubble
Yeah,
or something.
I was gonna say my last comment would be I think it really comes down to understanding how your partner is communicating. Um, People will answer questions in a totally different way than what you were expecting. And you just kind of have to take their word for it and trust them that they're being as honest with you as they can and try to figure it out. But yeah, a lot of people.
Your goal in asking a question shouldn't necessarily be to get an answer, but to see what is answered. Because if you don't expect like a specific statement, but you actually observe how the answer comes across, you might learn a lot more.
Well, I'm reminded of people, of course, people who have been in traumatic events. When you ask them if a car was coming at you and you could see the headlights and you knew that you were going to be hit, how would you feel? And average people will say, I'd feel terrified. This is terrifying. And people who have been in traumatic events and they shut down, they say, I don't know. I'd get out of the way. And I noticed that I would do that sometimes when people would ask me, like, well, how would you feel if this was happening? I'd be like, well, I don't know. I would do this because I don't really know how I'd feel. But also, there's the love languages. And the average person has a different way of expressing how they feel when they're angry, when they're happy, when they're wanting,
that's something
seeking
we
a
forgot
connection.
about. So we were everybody were the 4 love languages. There's a test. We shared it on our Facebook page. You can always Google it, the 4 love languages. And 5. Sorry, 5 love languages. Thank you. Somebody's got to check on me. And do the test and see what your love language is, because on Wednesday we're going to be talking about the love languages and how they impact communication. And
What about the journaling?
I think now it's time for journaling.
Who starts?
I can confess, this is the shaming part. I have sucked at my journal. I've kept up. Dear D was right. So I've kept up with the question a day journal, but I only do the other journaling maybe every couple days now, every 2 or 3 days. So I think I need to tighten that up for next week, or maybe do that big session on Sunday, like Mike talks about.
I kind of did the same thing where like the first 2-3 weeks, I was like, I need to do it every day. I have to do it every day. And then I'd miss like 4 days and I'd be like, I have to do it every day. Now that I'm doing it like every other day, or when I wake up and I'm like, I don't know what to write, and I write, I don't know what to write, and nothing else comes, I would just leave it there. And I just call that, that's it for the day and move on. But the more I'm starting to slow down, but I think it's more of a, sorry, the only thing that's coming to mind is like when you're like riding out of town on a horse and you're like booking it, and then you get far enough out of town that you're like, okay, I'm gonna do a slow jog. Like that's where I'm at right now, where it's like, all right, I don't have to run anymore. I'm just gonna go at a steady pace and actually pace myself. It
Are
seems
you
to be
still
working
doing
out.
your Q&A a day too?
I have not. I did that for like 3 days and then I stopped.
I'm kind of enjoying. I like the questions. Like one day is like, what do you need to buy? And I was like, oh, what's on my grocery list?
I did the exact same thing as you, Agnieszka, because I have the Q&A journal, and then I have it's a journal. It's called the Journal of the Severed Moon. It's just like a fantasy, magical kind of prompts. And I tried to do like my regular journaling that we were asked to do, the Q&A, and that other journal, and then also keep up with all my notes and everything. And I was just like, no.
Too much.
What about you, Deirdre and Dennis? What about your journaling?
Yeah, I made 2 journal entries this week. I don't have a fancy journal. I think I've just got a notebook, and I just have that same notebook. And I'm just proud of myself. Yeah, I'm just proud of myself that if I do remember to write in it, I write in it. And what I'm finding interesting is, for me doing it like that, my journal notes are becoming more. There's more clarity to them. I've kind of, I'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh no, that's something I can put in my journal. That's right, or an experience or something. instead of because I started off the same. Oh, okay, I don't know what's right. I don't know. It's a nice day. And now it's kind of moved to, I see the benefits of the insights that I get, and I journal insights if I remember.
Yeah, I'm yet to try
That's it.
that brain dump, that the where he just writes everything that comes to mind for like an hour until the river stops, just writes and writes and writes. And then he
It's
said that there's huge benefits from that.
it is good to do that, and that's everything. It doesn't even have to be grammatically correct sentences. It's just getting whatever words that are coming into you and just writing them out. It does. It feels really nice.
About you, Dennis?
I had a really remarkable experience as I was writing, and I started to write like from a different place on the inside. I feel like I never really had that before, so clear, because it felt like I was basically writing for myself. So I was getting, like a perspective and viewpoints, and even like counsel in a way, how to act, what to do, from I don't know, from like a space that was beyond, like, I would say, my day by day awareness. And that was really a nice experience, and I'm looking forward and hoping to continue and gain more experiences with that. But it was very it was actually remarkable even to read it afterwards, because it felt like it was very uniquely written for me, but not necessarily exactly by me or by the one who usually would write. So that was my
You're just talking to God. It's all
experience.
good.
I was going to add one last thing in, because I've been doing the negativity journaling, where you write out resentments and fears first thing in the morning. And I noticed on the days where I don't have anything to write, a lot of those days I'll be very frustrated, because I feel like Agnieszka pointed out, like I'm imprisoned, like I'm stuck here having to write something that there's nothing there, nothing's coming to mind. And even on those days, it's like I have my moment to be frustrated, and then I can leave it there on the paper. So even if it's blank, I have pages in my journal where half the page is just blank, and I'm like, I had no idea what to write today, and this is making me very angry. And then I just leave it there. So it's like, okay, I acknowledged it. It's so much easier to be angry at a book and have it on paper than it is to be at people, because when you're angry at people, you expect a reaction. When you're angry at a book, you don't expect it to be like, oh, how dare you?
Do you also write down the gratitude for the day to balance that out in the evening or something?
I don't write it down. That's probably a good idea. I do take a moment to look over my accomplishments and the things that I've done for the day. But it probably would be a good idea, if I'm making a physical symbol of the negativity, I should probably balance that out with another. Yeah, exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, the gratitude.
Yeah.
The gratitude sentence. Yeah.
Well, very good. Is there anything else on journalism or journaling?
I just thought up that I just had this really great idea. Just by what you're mentioning, the gratitude journal, how that came about was this woman was seeing her, therapist, and she had like a lovely life. Her children were wonderful. Her partner, she had a great partner, great life, home, house, everything. She was, just still not happy, and she wanted to know why. And so she started a gratitude journal. So what she did is she got what are those little cameras called? When you take a photo and they pop
Polaroids.
out she got one of those, and so she'd take a Polaroid or something she felt grateful for every day for a whole year and stick that into a journal and then write a sentence about it. So just maybe, yeah. I've always wanted to try that, but I never have. So I probably got a good opportunity to start trying that.
No, it's a creative, fun aspect to journaling that would be a motivating factor to keep going, to see how the project ends up.
Yeah, one last thing to add. When I was in a really dark place in my life, what I used to do is I used to like make myself a really good coffee, and I'd be like reveling in how good the coffee was. Like, everything sucks in my life, but this is a good cup of coffee. I like this coffee, and I can have another.
Okay.
I was gonna say I will add one more thing, because I started doing that because of you, Agnieszka. When you said make something in your life your own, even if it's just the way you make your coffee, do it exactly how you want it so you can enjoy it to the fullest extent. And I kind of extend that to every little aspect of my life, where I'm like, okay, there's some pretty flowers outside. That looks really nice today. Or the rain is falling, nice and soft. It's not pelting me in the face. That's nice. That was it.
One lesson that I've taken from listening to you guys and getting to know you guys over this past year is the importance of being grateful. Gratitude definitely does lead to happiness. And that is something that I never really consciously was aware of until this past year. You are in control of your own happiness. And one key factor to doing that is just ask yourself, what am I grateful for? What am I lucky? And that ties into one of my favorite all-time movies, which is The Color Purple. And the whole theme of that movie was they're walking past the field of purple flowers. And she said, I think it pisses God off when you don't stop to appreciate the color purple. And I was even a kid, a young child that I was. I understood it. I got that. I thought, yeah, you've got to appreciate the finer things in life, like a good cup of coffee. And on that note, another country song I think is appropriate for what Agnieszka was saying when he sings, sitting on the bar stool, acting like a darn fool. That's what I'm a-doing today. Anyway, there's a lot of country songs about a glass of beer. Now, I don't know if there's any country songs about coffee, but I'm sure there are. So,
did I accidentally just post a bunch of country music in like the music thread or something today? Because
okay, so we're going to continue the discussion on this topic and the observations on Wednesday at 7:00 Eastern time. Is that right?
Yeah.
So Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays you can catch Raising Excellence, 7:00 Eastern time. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, we're done with final thoughts. We already have
Okay.
too many.
All right. Well, so Agnieszka, Willow, Deirdre, Dennis, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on to guest host the show today. My name's Chris McMillan, and I'm at truthconduit.com. And we will wrap up there. Thanks for watching, and talk to you next time.